Have you ever been in the situation where you had to leave your cat home alone for a period of time and you didn't have somebody to stop in and check on him or her? Well, as a cat owner, if you have, you will know that this can create a lot of anxiety and concern when you're gone because you sit there wondering, like, is my cat okay? What's going on? And so in this video, I wanted to share with you a few tips about things that you can do to cat-proof your home to the best of your ability if you ever do find yourself in this situation. The tips that I am going to share are based on my experiences as not only a pet sitter and things that I've seen that you might not think of, but also a cat owner who was for a very long period of time in this situation because I had a cat who was super, super aggressive and liability issues meant that I couldn't have somebody watch her. So for that reason, I think I have a pretty good background to share, and so I have 5 tips for you, and let's get started. So to begin, ideally, let me just acknowledge that having a pet sitter if you're going to leave town is, in my opinion, always best. However, it is also not always realistic because multiple things can happen that leave you in a position where that's just not possible. So you actually could have had a pet sitter lined up and that person may cancel last minute. There might not be somebody nearby that you trust or who is available at the time you need to go. Maybe it was like a last minute trip or an emergency and you really just don't have a choice. Or, as I mentioned, I was in the situation for 5 years where I literally could not have somebody come into my house and watch my cat because she had majorly serious aggression issues. She would proactively stalk and attack people. It was actually quite dangerous. So inviting a pet sitter in would have been inviting a whole host of possible injury and serious problem liability. So I'll start off by saying that there's multiple reasons it can happen. While I'm a huge advocate for pet sitters if possible, in reality, sometimes stuff happens where it's just not. So I hope that these tips can give you peace of mind if you find yourself in this situation. So my first 2 tips are pretty basic. So number 1 is leave out extra food and water. And that's more than you think you're going to need. And I emphasize that last point because you just don't know why your return might get delayed. Airline issues are not unheard of in this day and age. Something could happen where you want to extend your trip. There could be an emergency. Just plan for the contingency that I think I'm going to be gone 3 days, but what if it gets stretched to 5? I would leave out just a little extra. When you are leaving food out for a long period of time, dry food, by far the superior choice. Wet food can get hard and yuck and possibly even make the cat sick if they're eating it, a day later. So hard food, water, and more than you think you need. So the second one is to get rid of the 3 C's: chemicals, choking hazards, and cords. And the 3 C's just help you remember it. It's basically walk through your house and if you see a cord kind of laying there, pick it up. If you see a bottle of something on the counter that the cat might tip over, even if it's dish detergent, and kind of start licking it up, put it away. And then choking hazards, like little pieces of child toys, little pieces of like parts and pieces from games. I'm trying to think, even like papers or anything little laying around. And the reason, even if you have a cat who doesn't typically go after those things, when an owner is gone and that animal feels anxiety, it does sometimes, not always, but kind of alter their behavior a bit. So just for immediate peace of mind, eliminate your 3 C's. So these next tips I want to share with you are things that I've actually witnessed happen. So I think most people would think about leaving extra food out and picking up hazardous things. But these next 3 are maybe something that wouldn't have occurred to you, but in each case, while cat sitting, I've seen these situations play out. The first one, and this is just so big, make sure that you prop doors open in areas where you don't want the cat to get locked in or out of. So what I have seen frequently is the door to a master bedroom where the litter box was kept gets shut. I mean, who knows how? Maybe the cats were walking by it and their tail swished it. Sometimes people leave ceiling fans on in a breeze or the windows cracked. You have to think as you go through your house and cat-proof it before you leave, what rooms are crucial for my cat to be able to get in and out of? You don't want them to get locked out of the room that has their water or food or litter, for obvious reasons, or locked into something. So what I always do is I take a lap around my house and any door that is an entrance to a place where she definitely needs to be, I put a weight. And when I say weight, I don't mean literal weight, I mean a heavy object in front of the door so it does not shut. And in the name of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, let me add a little bonus tip or suggestion to this. As the weight, what I've found very, very helpful is to use extra food and water dishes in front of the door. So not only does this ensure that you're putting that extra food and water out there, but it allows you to spread it throughout the house. And so, I always think worst case scenario, worst case, even despite your best efforts, if one of those doors accidentally gets shut, there's still extra food and water in multiple other places. Now, speaking of water dishes, recently I made a discovery. So Katniss had always been, and literally this changed only a couple of months ago when she went through this pretty dramatic illness that literally, I'm not joking, it had us in and out of the vet 6 different times. And one of my major concerns during that illness was dehydration. And so one night out of desperation, I literally went to PetSmart and picked up a water fountain. And I will be honest, prior to that, my perception was it was a waste of money. It wasn't going to help her drink. She would be intimidated by it because she's really scared of running bath water. So I really had never thought that it was something I needed to do, but with the fear of dehydration, it was literally try anything. So I went and bought one, I plugged it in, and she actually really liked it. So it was, it was a great discovery. So I'm a big believer in water fountains now. The one I bought at PetSmart that night was great. However, it had one big flaw, and that is a cord. Duh, it needs power. However, the flaw meant that I was not able to put it in front of my doors just because there's no outlet nearby. And also, frankly, I'll be honest, leaving town for a period of time, I wouldn't want it plugged in because I'd have that, remember the 3 C's, the cord concern. So I made an amazing discovery, and I'm so excited to tell you guys about UAH Pet's wireless pet water fountain. So this is something that we just received about 3 weeks ago, and it is awesome. It's got all the benefits of the one that I had been using previously, but the biggest thing is it is wireless and you can literally put it anywhere in your house. And so I actually made a little fun Instagram reel showing Katniss enjoying it in some of her favorite spots in the house, which was fun to do. But practically speaking here, right in front of the door when I leave town is exactly where that thing is going, because I can put it there. There's no cord to worry about, and it is definitely heavy enough to prop that door open. And Katniss is so intrigued by it that she will go right up, and I've noticed putting her on a kitty cam when I leave, that I can watch how she just enjoys the fountain. She kind of hovers around it, she'll sniff it, she'll lick it, she'll take some sips of water, and honestly it's kind of cute, but when she's done, she'll lay by it almost like she's protective. So the wireless pet water fountain is something that I would recommend if your cat, is a big fan of water fountains in general. I think the added benefit of having one where you can put it anywhere is awesome. It has a 4-month battery life. It has filters that keep the water healthy. It runs kind of like fresh water, like a pond. The wide tray is better for their whiskers. If you would like to try UAH Pet's wireless water fountain, you can order it on Amazon and save 20% off with our code, which is Katniss20. Okay guys, I'm not gonna lie, this next tip, number 4, it's something I've definitely seen, and it's created the paranoia in me. And I get teased a little bit from people that I know about this one, but it is to think about your stovetop. And why? That seems like a really weird thing to say. It's because the number of cats I have seen while pet sitting that get up on stovetops, walk around on them, rub against them, bat things around on them is high. I don't know what the attraction is. It's the owner leaves the cats on the stove, even if they're not typically the type of cat that likes to walk on the counter. I've seen it so often. And so it just makes me think, my tip to you would be to make sure before you leave that stovetop is cleaned off. Think in your mind, what would happen if the cat accidentally rubbed against one of the knobs and turned on the stove? And I hate to put that paranoid thought into your head, but I've seen it. And so if there's nothing on the stovetop, then that immensely reduces the risk of anything horrible happening. Not completely, but it does help. Now I'm not recommending this necessarily because everybody's stove is different, but what I do is just an electric plug-in stove. Before I leave, I literally unplug it because I don't want that thought even in my head. But I guess the point of tip number 4 is to think about your stovetop, and my suggestion would be definitely make sure you clean it off. I've seen houses where people leave dish towels, pans, little objects that could get right by the stovetop that could get batted over by the cat, because we all know how much they like swatting things. And again, it's probably not something you would think about typically, but because I've seen it so often, I definitely think that it's important to let you know. And finally, my last tip is again based on something I have seen more than once in homes when I pet sit. Now typically, this isn't everybody, but typically people have lights on timing systems, so I don't need to, as the pet sitter, worry about turning things on and off, which is great. But sometimes what they put on timing systems are tall lamps next to couches, tall thin lamps next to couches. And cats, when they get anxious, playful, just it's their nature, might, tip that over onto the couch, and the couch is made of cloth, and that light timer comes on, and then all of a sudden you have a potential fire hazard. So I think light timers are completely fine, but if you do have lamps or something that could get knocked over, just make sure they're sitting in areas where that's not going to create a fire hazard if it does. So in this video, I shared with you some tips that I have learned through my years of pet sitting and being a cat owner about how to cat-proof your house if you have to leave town and you have to leave your cat alone. Again, as I stated at the beginning, pet sitter checking in periodically, obviously ideal. And being a pet sitter myself, I really don't have a huge interest in discouraging people from using the service. But as I mentioned too, I live in reality, and the reality is all the time situations can come up where this just is not possible. Personally, I was asked before I started filming this video by a cat owner friend of mine, how long would I recommend you leave a cat home alone? I mean, I don't have a specific recommendation. I will tell you that personally, I left my cat Maddie, she was the majorly aggressive cat who I could not have anybody come in and watch, home alone 2 separate occasions for 5 days. Now when I say 5 days, it was really 3 full days without her, and then my departure day and my return day, but I left pretty early in the morning and I returned pretty late, so it felt like 5. It also felt too long. I just didn't have any other options at the time, and I felt awful about it. It really did make an impression on me. So know that everything turned out okay. Know that you'll get through it, because I think that anxiety that cat owners feel when you leave is just actually a universal experience, no matter how well you've prepared, honestly, even if somebody is checking in. So we love our babies. We don't want anything bad to happen to them. By following these steps, it will help ensure that nothing does. And honestly, as a pet sitter too, please take comfort in the knowledge that even though I've seen these things, I've actually never experienced a disaster with them. So it's just about preventing that, however, minimizing every risk possible so you can have the most peace of mind and your cat can have the most enjoyable experience possible without you. Of course, ideally, when you reunite, it'll all be better, but at least while you're gone, they'll be safe, they'll be happy, and they'll be looking forward to your return. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to continue putting out a lot of cat content. It is my life, my world. I love cats. I immerse myself in the world. So I appreciate your support. I hope you have a wonderful day.